This right here is a speed camera located in the Isle of Dogs in East London. And if you're driving along this road, you will probably be slowing down before you come to it because you know what it's here for, to catch you speeding. Go a little bit over the speed limit and tick, takes a picture of your license plate and you've got yourself a ticket. And it won't be a surprise as there are multiple signs leading up to the speed camera warning you of its presence. So the point of them isn't to ticket you, but to get you to slow down. But what's interesting is throughout the UK and much of Europe, these are just a normal part of the road system, and they're pretty much widely accepted at this point, being as common as the everyday traffic light. However, across the pond in the United States, these are a lot less common depending on where you go. And in fact, there are many states in which these speed cameras and red light cameras that catch you when you run a red light are outright banned. In my video this past week on the Hawk Beacon, a convoluted American light system that's ignored by both drivers and pedestrians, we had some really insightful comments from viewers that had their heart in the right place, thinking they'd found a way to solve this problem. Comments such as, if people are ignoring them, why not put in an enforcement camera? And something called red light camera, and red light cameras fix the problem in most other places in the world. Yeah, and also in many US states. But as we discussed in my video on why so many American roundabouts are dangerous, well, a lot of traffic laws are decided on a state-by-state basis. And so if the state in question hasn't passed legislation about certain infrastructure, things can go quite badly. And as of recording this video, there are currently 17 US states that have either banned or heavily restricted the use of both red light cameras and speed cameras. And when I tell you the reasons why, well, I think you might actually understand where they're coming from. All right, so there are 2 to 3 major reasons why many of the states have banned traffic cameras. So let's just start with one of them that I'm most familiar with, New Jersey, because traffic cameras weren't always banned in my home state. In fact, it's about time I finally confess my sins. If you watched my previous video on the Hawk Beacon, you would have seen me spend a significant amount of time talking about how scary this certain intersection was at Delsea Drive. Well, I'll be honest, at some point, when the traffic cameras did exist between the years of 2009 and 2014 during their pilot program, they had a red light camera installed at that very intersection, in which at some point in the year 2011, I received a letter in the mail. They had caught me doing a rolling red. Even though right on red is legal there, I didn't come to a complete stop before taking a right. There's no excuse. I was pretty devastated at the time because I think the fine was about $130, which was, I don't know, about 10% of my current wealth at the time. So it was really stressful. But at the end of the day, they had caught me doing something I shouldn't have done. So I paid the fine and never did it again. But you see, most of my fellow New Jerseyans were a lot more knowledgeable about the law than I was at the time. And so they managed to get their fines completely tossed out using a very interesting legal loophole. Let me tell you about it in the studio. Oh, hello. And thus we come up against the first major hurdle for these cameras. Some argue they're unconstitutional. The Founding Fathers were not a fan of traffic cameras, or rather, it's the details of the 6th Amendment to start. The 6th Amendment states that, quote, in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to speedy and public trial by an impartial jury and to confront the witnesses against them. Now, you might be wondering, Evan, what does this have to do with traffic cameras? Well, some argue that getting a ticket from a machine is a violation of this amendment because technically you're being accused of a violation but without a human witness to confront. In other words, who's accusing you? A camera? You can't question a camera in court, can you? Believe me, I've tried. Your Honor, the camera was trying to shoot me. Sorry, bad jokes aside. And some legal experts believe that this lack of confrontation is enough to make traffic camera tickets unconstitutional. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's dumb. Couldn't you have an officer look at the footage and then the officer could be the witness to confront? Well, here's where it gets interesting, a little spicy, and where it involves one of the other big reasons many states have these banned. You see, in theory, yes, an officer could review the footage and issue the ticket, making them the person you confront in court. But here's the catch. In many cases in the USA, it's not the police department reviewing the footage at all. It's a private company. Yeah, most cities decided to just offload all that work to private companies. And when have private companies ever, put their own interests and stock values over the rights of people? Never. Never once. You see, most cities that use these traffic cameras don't actually operate them themselves. They hire companies that set up the cameras, review the footage, and then send the violations to local authorities. They do it all for them. Sounds pretty nice. Just sit back as a police officer and let the money roll in. Well, the issue with these is that many of these companies have, let's just say, financial incentives to issue as many tickets as possible. You ever hear of a whole ticket quota? Oh yeah, this is like speed running that.
Now, since many contracts are based on a revenue sharing model, basically the private companies get a cut of every single ticket that they collect. Interesting that. So having an officer review the footage doesn't always happen. And even if they did get an officer to do it, the original accuser is still a machine by law, which can raise the same constitutional concerns. This argument can be made that, well, as the officer didn't witness the event firsthand, the testimony about the footage, it could be considered hearsay. And for a similar reason why speed cameras, not red light cameras, but speed cameras are banned, traffic cameras also break the Fifth Amendment due process clause. Now, when I first heard this, I was like, this is insane. This is like some lawyer with a Rubik's Cube of the law, just managing to twist everything the way it works. It's fascinating. But the argument basically centers on the idea that these cameras shift the burden of proof unfairly onto drivers. When a camera captures a violation, drivers are automatically issued a fine and expected to either pay or prove their innocence. And I think you might be able to understand where I'm going with this. It's not exactly innocent until proven guilty. Critics argue that this presumption of guilt violates the Fifth Amendment's guarantee that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. In other words, issuing fines based solely on automated systems can deprive drivers of their property, money, without giving them the legal process to challenge the evidence effectively. And as much as I do want to say, come on now, you're on camera. Well, there is the issue of error rates and such. Cameras aren't perfect, and mistakes do happen. Some people have received tickets when they weren't even speeding. It could have just been a mistake of the camera. So it isn't fair that in these cases, an innocent person is assumed to be guilty at the start when there are a lot of other factors that could be at play. So it's like such an interesting one where it's like, okay, I mean, yeah, you're meant to be innocent until proven guilty, but like, I don't know. All right, so some states argue that these traffic cameras are a violation of their Sixth Amendment rights. Others argue Fifth Amendment rights. But most people can get on board with this final reason. I think even if you're not from America, you might kind of understand why a lot of Americans hate them. The last reason deals with the perception, or rather, realization that these traffic cameras in many states aren't really about increasing safety on the roads, but rather money. You see, there have been many documented cases of local police changing the timings for the stoplights, not to increase safety. No, that would mean extending the length of the yellow, but the opposite way, to generate more revenue, aka steal money from their residents. Why not shorten the length of time that certain lights turn yellow? Now it turns to red faster, and even safe drivers, not expecting such a fast switch of the light, will accidentally run the red, thus netting some money for both the local police and the company in charge of running the cameras. This doesn't act to stop people from running red lights. It actually arbitrarily increases it and adds more confusion on the road, thus inherently making them less safe. And of course, looting the money from their residents. I've got 3 interesting examples for you, and there are so many more. In 2005, Union City, California was caught trapping motorists with a yellow signal time that was 1.3 seconds below the minimum established by state law. And the only reason the city got caught and had to refund over $1 million in tickets was because one of the people they caught out with this little trick was an engineer. Probably the wrong type of guy to try and trick with this type of thing. So he made a few inquiries, and the city admitted, yeah, the yellows are 30% quicker at the lights with the red light cameras, but they claimed this was just merely coincidental. And then they claimed they had no effective system to verify the timing of the traffic signals, despite that being actually important to road safety. They're just like, yeah, we just put these up. Oh, so it's not about safety, about money. Meanwhile, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a similar story with a shortened yellow light. A motorist challenged this citation, and the private company, it's actually a British company, yikes, running the cameras for a cut of the profit, provided the judge in the case all of its data, claiming the yellow was 3.8 seconds long. Totally legal. So the judge took that information, thought about it, then he visited the intersection himself, where he noticed the yellow was actually only 3 seconds long, so the judge ruled everyone that got a ticket there be refunded. And finally, Dallas, Texas. This one's got the funniest conclusion, I'd say. Basically, Dallas was caught installing red light cameras at stoplights whose yellow light was a full second shorter, where one light, just one light in Dallas, Texas, net the city over $700,000 within just a few months. But after they got caught and had to bring all the yellow lights up to the legal minimum in the state, thus actually making the city safer to drive in, the city announced, the cameras are no longer profitable. So they were banned statewide. Basically got caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and then when they were told, hey, don't do that, they threw the cookie jar on the ground. No cookies for anybody. It's just only in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas, including corruption. But now you're probably thinking, all right, but if this is unconstitutional, how the heck is it legal in other states? The Constitution is federal, all right? State laws can't go against the Constitution, can they? Well, some states managed to get around the whole Fifth and Sixth Amendment issues by making speeding and running a red light a civil matter rather than a criminal one. This means instead of being charged with a crime, you're simply receiving a civil penalty. You know, like a fine. In civil matters, the standard for evidence is lower, and certain protections like the, quote, right to confront your accuser, those darn cameras, under the Sixth Amendment, they don't apply. So by shifting traffic violations into the civil category, states can issue tickets based on traffic camera footage without the constitutional hurdles that would otherwise apply in criminal prosecutions. This is how, for instance, the state of Maryland, for Brits not pronounced Maryland, please stop that. By the way, side note, I'm sorry to pronounce Tucson, Arizona wrong. Tucson, awful sounding if you pronounce it the right way. I was just like, Tucson. I know you don't pronounce the C. Turns out you're supposed to put an accent on both the tu and the son. You, Arizona. Anyway, as I was saying, in Maryland, they had speeding tickets issued by cameras that were treated as civil penalties with no points added to your license. That works out for Maryland. But it's quite interesting because if you think about it, hypothetically, even if a Maryland camera caught you going 65 in the 25, the most they can do is fine you. No points on your license, nothing else. So that's kind of fun, I guess. So overall, I think I can boil down the problem to the federal government doesn't have any law on how traffic cameras should operate because that's just been led up to the states, and every state is going to decide how to interpret the Constitution and their own state constitution as they please. Hey, that's how it's set up. However, I do feel like there's a really, really easy solution to all this. You don't even need any cameras. You don't even need any cops. And get this, you don't even need any lights. That's right, I'm talking about a roundabout, a simple bloody roundabout. Call it a freedom circle. I don't care. It increases the flow of traffic. It decreases time spent waiting. It makes crossing safer for pedestrians due to reduced vehicle speeds and reduces the number of accidents, all while costing far less to maintain. And hey, no need to bring up the Constitution. You have the right to remain safe. And you can make it even more American. Fill the middle island with billboards for lawyers and medication so it doesn't feel too British. I feel like comparing an American intersection to a British roundabout is very similar to comparing what each country calls football. In England, football is a constant stream of the ball going back and forth, and then that's it. It's got a good flow. In the US, it's stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. American football has no flow. It's almost like it was designed around the road. It's very fascinating. But it does genuinely upset me when innocent people die from easily avoidable events, and then the people in power throw up their hands and go, hey, what are we gonna do? It's a fact of life. It's just what it's like being American. No, it's not. It doesn't have to be. That's such a horrible defeatist way of thinking. Hey, all these bad problems, that's just what it's like being American. No, that's why you've been elected, to hopefully solve these problems. Am I crazy? But another thing that would definitely help in this situation that I can't really see happening is to have a similar situation to how the UK operates, where all traffic fines go to the national budget rather than to the local ones. Imagine being a police department in a red state and being told traffic fines are now going to the federal budget. You'd be damned if the federal government was gonna have any more of your money. You'd clean that town right up. You'd make those yellow lights even longer and safer. And, you know, there's no more financial incentive to give people tickets outside of, you know, to keep them safe. No more ticket quotas, nothing. It just makes sense. When I found out that all speeding tickets in the UK go to the national budget, I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. No more of those issues in the US where you turn into a certain small town and those police are always like trapping you looking for people to speed when they set the speed limit from 45 to 25 real fast and be like, haha, gotcha. And then they can get more money for their little police department. No, at this point, if they do get money, it's for like the big national budget, so they don't really have to care. But there is one more solution that I have learned from my time spent in the UK, that for some reason, this solution does not exist at all in the States, except very, very rarely in states like Pennsylvania and Maryland at construction sites. Listen, I grew up in the States. Everyone speeds over the speed limit to a certain extent. I'd say the average speed in the left lane on the New Jersey Turnpike is at least 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, at least until a New York driver decides to camp out there unaware of how much everybody hates him. But speeding on the highway is pretty standard. It's, I don't know, I feel like that's just a standard way of life growing up, is what everyone does. You kind of keep with the flow of traffic to stay safe. And if the flow of traffic's going 85, you're like, what can I do? But then, you know, you have those constant heart attacks because there's cops patrolling all the roads in the US. Recently, I was driving in Buckinghamshire in England with my girlfriend, and I asked her something I just just randomly noticed. I was like, what? Why do I never see cops? Why are there never any cops on the road in the UK? I'm so used to driving with that constant fear of like, oh, I'm good. Even if I'm, obeying the law, there's just this fear of a cop just popping out and being like, haha, I don't like you, But her response to my question, why are there no cops, blew my little American mind. Many UK and EU motorways have this insane tech that it's not even that new. It's not in America. It's so cool. It means there's so much fewer cops needed on the road, but it also effectively stops speeding. Rather than a speeding camera that only checks your speed at a specific spot, so you could slow down there and then speed up after, the UK and EU have motorways with average speed check zones. So you're driving, you pass under a gate, and it snaps a little photo of your license plate using automatic number plate recognition. And then later in the motorway, you'll pass through another gate that does the same thing. Using the power of mathematics, or as they say here, maths, the computer checks how long you drove between the gates and calculates your average speed. If your average speed is over the limit, easy, you're issued a ticket. End of story. So sure, you could speed on the highway, but then you'd have to slow down before the next gate, thus losing all the time saved, and you might as well just drive the speed limit. Wow, what a solution. I just can't believe I'd never heard of this before. I was like, wow, no one seems to be speeding in this area, because if you do speed, you gotta slow down. It doesn't really make sense to speed. Obviously, this isn't on every motorway in the UK. They're all over construction sites, definitely on the A roads, which are like the British equivalent of interstates, inter-country. Either way, it just feels like such a simple solution whose main goal is just to get people to slow down and drive more safely. You're given signs telling you, hey, you're about to enter an average speed check zone, and you lower your speed accordingly. That's it. And you know what? The technology does exist in the US. Like I said, it's available specifically on parts of the highway in Pennsylvania and Maryland where they have construction, some rare instances of putting them near school zones, but why not just put them other places? Oh yeah, forgot. Can't take a camera to court. God damn. It's like such an interesting legal minefield. But, maybe it's because average speed check zone, that sounds like some boring maths. I'm just saying, I'm throwing out all the good names here. Let's call them constitutional cruise controls. You know what I'm saying? It's pretty cool. We, the drivers of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect traffic system, do ordain and establish this constitutional cruise control for the highways of America. Thank you. Anyway, I'm currently obviously in my urban planning arc, but I'm always trying to keep the algorithm on its toes, so it's never gonna know what I'm uploading next. Neither will you. But if you like this video, you'll probably like this one too, about the old New Jersey roundabouts that are lawless, so we say. Anyway, I'm gonna go play some Astrobot. So I'll see you later, bye. Wait, come back. I didn't know it was Tucson, I thought it was Tucson. Because it's too sunny there. I'm sorry. Speed check era zone. No. Goodbye. Astrobot. And it's Astrobot. I mean, I've also been playing Psychonauts too, but you don't care, it's fine. Stop playing Bloodborne because it glitched out the first 20 minutes of the game. God damn it.